Hi, and welcome to the 64 Doors. Today we're going to open door 46. Here we find the Sensual, and this archetype is all about serendipity, flesh, and bliss. We're going to explore the Sensual from a human design perspective and a Jinky perspective. So here we have the Rave Mandala with all the gates, all the gene keys, and also the astrological wheel with all the 12 signs. And this is what the sun moves through in 1 year. So right now we have the sun here on the cusp, Libra and Virgo in gate 46. We have the earth on the cusp of Pisces and Aries in gate 25. And the design part of the cross is the 10 and the 15. And people that are born in this transit, they are going to be born over 6 days, and they can have 3 different incarnation crosses. These 3 crosses are the cross of the vessel of love, the cross of serendipity, and the cross of healing. And you can see here that all these explanations are quite short. And in the first cross, you have the 15 and the 10. And in the second and third cross, you have the 52 and the 58. And that is because the cross is not a 90-degree cross, it's an 88-degree cross. So the first cross says, you bring the energy of the love of life. You are into your body and everything that affects it. You are into experiencing this earthly existence and doing it in a loving way. You're here to be love, and the key for you is that it has a sensuousness to it. You're here to show others how to love being alive, right? So here we have all the 4 gates in that G center that is all about love, direction, and identity. And then in the other 2 crosses, the 52 and the 58 are in the root center. So we have the 46 and the 25 in the G center, the 52 and the 58 in the root center. And here it says, you're here to be love and heal through love. The energy of your cross supports you to do this with others. Your energy is focused on love of the body and being embodied. You may not always see much in return, but your power of healing through love will make a big difference in the world around you. So going back to the standard view of the body graph, we see that the 46 come from the G center and point down to the sacral center and the 29. And the 29 is the archetype of the water goddess. And the way that it's described in the circuitry book is the channel of discovery, the design of succeeding where others fail. And the quick reference theme is, once you're clear about making a commitment, you have to totally abandon yourself to it, releasing all expectations about its outcome. In this way, you will learn there is no such thing as failure or success, but only continual discovery. If we just look at the 46, it says people who are always in the right place at the right time when they let go of their expectations. So we do speak about the gate of luck here as well for the 46. And if we look at integral human design in the same channel, this is the channel of discovery. And the low frequency here is inhibition. So it's the 29 that can't commit and the 46 that is in a kind of seriousness. But when they both say yes to the experience, it is a discovery. And the highest frequency, when they are really co-creating together, it's a dance. And you see the stream of fulfillment is about desire on the low frequency, and the higher frequency is fulfillment and ecstasy. And I actually wanted to even read a little bit today from the 64 doors. So we have the keywords that we were mentioning in the beginning: serendipity, flesh, and bliss. The internal motivator is it's worth it's worth it to be here in physical form. And that's really the main thing with this 46. It says it's worth it. And when Richard speaks about this archetype in, I think it's in the 64 ways, he speaks about eating mangoes, being naked on Hawaii and just picking those mangoes from the trees and just eating them. And that is really the true expression of the 46. And it's worth it. And I love to have like the mango, like the juice of the mango, like on my hands, and it's like feeling everything through the senses. And it is attractive, it's sensuous, it's graceful, it's experimental. With that 29, it says yes to the experience. It doesn't know how it's going to end. Others might say this is failure or this is success, but it doesn't really care about that because it's in it for the ride. And the Achilles heel though can be, it has to learn to feel the body beyond the judgment of the mind. That is the biggest challenge, because we are so often so wind up in the mind, so that we are not allowing the intelligence of the body to speak with us and through us. And I also wanted to read a little bit from the 64 doors, and it comes both from a little bit of what is the SQ. So when we look at the hologenetic profile, the gene key that programs the SQ is the 46. And this is the developmental phase from 0 to 7 years old, when the physical body is developing and when we are not kind of filtering everything through our emotional center and our intellectuality. Like we are very much there in physical form, and a lot of the things that happen to us are staying as cell memories. And this is where Richard speaks about ecstasy and what that really is from the place of embodiment. So here part of what this archetype says is that she loves the perfection of every experience, and she doesn't escape any feeling. She follows her bliss, which takes a leap of courage. It is not the same as following her pleasure. Bliss is rooted in a deep transcendence of her suffering. To her, ecstasy is not an extreme state of joy. It contains as much grief as it contains joy. It includes aloneness and intimacy, doubt and hope, mortality and eternity. She would say that ecstasy is the result of sadness and joy making love inside of her. The sensual is the queen of bliss and of the honoring of the flesh as her temple. She feels everything from the whisper and the feather to the heat of the blood and movement of passionate lovemaking. For her, everything is continual discovery and healing. The wisdom she shares is derived from her determination, dedication, and surrender in the experience as she's living it. So that's super beautiful. And I want to go back here and really look at, so the way that this archetype comes out in the 64 door, it's really like the kind of role modeling sense of it. It's how it is in the higher frequency. And as we know in the gene keys, we always look at the whole gene key spectrum, from a low contracted fear frequency to this higher expansive, open-hearted frequency that we can see in the archetype. So the lower frequency here is seriousness and constriction. And these are the programming partners, and you could see them in the cross. And here we have the victim of over seriousness and the shadow frequencies of frigidity or being frivolous. Very much the 25 comes in and speaks about the breathing patterns, and that's kind of what happens when the 46 doesn't completely trust life, doesn't completely go into with determination into the experience, trusting it, whatever comes through, whether it's suffering or joy or whatever is there. It's part of that 25 that can't be innocent, that doesn't just accept and allow, but it actually is in a state of contraction. And that's when luck goes out of the window, because you can't be intuitive and in the right place at the right time if you're constricted, if you aren't breathing, if you aren't feeling life moving through you. when it comes to the I Ching, here we have earth over wind, and the name of it is pushing upward. Great new life joyously sprouts from a tiny constricted seed buried in the dark. And this is part of this, I guess, the thing with the body too, as human beings. Many times we feel the body as a constriction, as something that is going to age, that is going to get sick, and eventually is going to die. And here it's really kind of having to go into that and accepting that, and not concentrating or focusing on that, but instead knowing that as life force moves through the body, that's where everything and anything that we can really experience comes through that. And really that the physical body is the portal. It's a temple, is the portal to everything. And like we have seen in the last codon ring that came before this codon ring, is that we are right now including the more subtle bodies together with the denser bodies. There is an integration, an alchemical process where we are able to live even more, to feel even more, to know even more, to discover even more through being here in physical form, through being embodied, through embodying our soul and our spirit. You see here in the geometry, so this is the second gene key, earth, and this is the 57th gene key, which is wind. And for me, this geometry braid, if you want, is something that's like so close to my heart. I spent so much time this weekend with this archetype as it came through, and I just felt it has all the answers. And when you look at this braid in the I Ching, so I have the second gene key, which is earth over earth, in my life's work. So dislocation, orientation, and unity. And then my vocation, my core wound, is wind over wind, which is unease, intuition, and clarity. So the combination of my life's work and my vocation are making up this 46, which happened to be my EQ. So somehow here you can see how these three energies that are so potent, EQ, life's work, and vocation, are coming together, like telling us about seriousness as the dislocation through unease, as and the light as the orientation through intuition, and the highest frequency, ecstasy's unity through clarity. And I do feel the city here. I do feel that I have a clarity about what bliss or ecstasy is. And that it's very different from what my mind can think it is. But I know that when I tune into the body and I feel the Kundalini in the body, and I feel how that is the same life force that moves through everything, I know that I'm in unity, and I'm very clear about that. And it's amazing as a human being to be able to tap into that electricity that we have inside of us. And here, like we saw in the astrology, we have both Libra and Virgo in this transit, which is mutable earth going into cardinal air. So more about this connection and the balance and the service to others through the pursuit of partnership and peace. And we're going to see this more into the next gates that are in this codon ring. Let's look at the codon ring. So here we have the codon ring of matter. And this has to do with this developmental process of incarnation from the point of conception to the age of 21. And this is what you see in the trinity of embodiment in the hologenic profile, where you have the SQ, the EQ, and the IQ. And then also it's even before that, it's the core. So these are the 9 months of conception. But what we speak about, because that's really where we can see what happens to us and what our like the family that we come into, what are the dynamics between our siblings and our parents. And this is what I work a lot with when I look at the Venus sequence, when I look at the whole hologenic profile. I see those patterns as basically the soul that decides to live something in the first 21 years. And that is the same kind of story that the soul comes in with, and the task that we can say that the core is showing us. So the soul comes in, it has a task, that is the task of the core of the vocation. And then the first 21 years is kind of just a repetition, so that the human can remember what it is that the soul wants to resolve. So that is quite mystical. I feel like this is one of the most important codon rings, because it really shows us what's in our DNA, and how it got there, and how it's getting lived out in this reality. So then we have the dream arc, and here you can go into Jane Addams' blog, where she paints these animals every week. And the mudra of the 46 is this. And I kind of feel there's something where I do feel with the finger tips that's like part of that sensuousness. Like there is so much, we can feel so much with our fingertips, and it's almost like this mudra is just bringing that out. This is a week to tap into your true intelligence and understand if it comes from the mind or it comes from the body. Oftentimes our mind has a lot of judgment about the body, that it can't be controlled, that it might age, get sick, and at the end of the day, even die. So the mind doesn't feel like being here in physical form is this great opportunity, really. Because the mind wants to be in control, and it doesn't feel happy when it's not kind of the king on the throne. So this week is about saying yes to the experience of the body, and to see that connection with the 29, that is the commitment to say yes. It's the water goddess. So to be more fluid, to be more in our senses, in our sensuality, in having that capacity for the whole range of the 46. We could see in the text of the archetype, it was saying to feel that feather and the whisper in the subtlety in one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum is to appreciate that passionate lovemaking and the heat of the blood and everything in between. And that is the genius of the 46, to be able to feel all that. And if you go in and look at the programming partner, the 25, we also see that a lot of that is having to do with our breathing. And the 25 tells us to allow, accept, and embrace. So when we close down our breathing, when we tense up our body, of course, it's going to be unpleasant to be in the body. It's going to be really hard to feel the intelligence of the body. There is something very ordinary about ecstasy and bliss. And why is that? Well, it is because it's always there. We are, in a way, we're never not in bliss and ecstasy. It's just that the distraction of the mind, the judgment of the mind, the distraction around us might make us not hear that ecstasy. Ecstasy is just really the feeling or the perception of life force coming through us, of life force moving. And that is how we feel the unity with everything else, because it is that same electrical current. And that is really what the 46 can show us. It's also a week to look at your relationships, your intimacy, and see where have you frozen a little bit? Where are you, where do you tend to go to frigidity? Are you or aren't you? That would be the repressive expression. Or are you more is more frivolous, that you're going into the reactive pattern, and that it looks on the surface that you are very liberated, you're very much in your body, but actually that also comes as a form of reaction. It's not really the gift frequency of that delight. Richard Rudd speaks about this archetype as eating mangoes and being in Hawaii and picking those mangoes from the trees and having the juice of them, like, you know, on your skin, and really just the naturalness of saying yes to that, of saying yes to this experience, whatever it is. And in that flow, in that gratefulness, in that sensuousness, that's when we are at the right place at the right time, in the right place at the right time. That's when there are synchronicities. That's when serendipity comes in. It can't come from a place of constriction. It can't come from a place of saying, I just want the feather and the whisper. I don't want this kind of expression. No, it's about living the full range. It's about being able to appreciate everything that comes to us through our senses. So for me, this is one of the most beautiful transits, and it is to start to really appreciate the temple, and also allowing everything that we can feel through this amazing vehicle that we're given.